All right, so we are going to do our third discussion. This is over cladograms and classification. So our first question was kind of great. So the first question was, are there scientific names that have more than 2 words? So if we looked at the notes from the classification notes, I talked about binomial nomenclature. So binomial nomenclature means 2 names. So all of our species will have a genus name and a species name. Those are all scientific names. The genus name, I like to think of it as like your last name, right? Like everyone in your family should share well, most likely shares the same last name. Like everyone in my family shares Johnson. But my species name would be my specific name, which is Rachel. So I'm the only Rachel Johnson in my family, so you can specifically find me from genus and species. There are some organisms where we have subspecies of them. So because we have a subspecies, we need to add an extra name. For example, humans. We know the human scientific name is Homo sapien, but really the super specific name for humans is Homo sapiens sapiens. Why they put sapiens in there twice, I'm not 100% sure. I just know that the name is Homo sapiens sapiens. So that is that. When we want to get like super specific, we'll put an extra name in there for subspecies. This second question, that was kind of a combination of a few questions, was, is there a difference between evolution and development? The answer is yes. There is actually a really big difference between evolution and development. And that difference is evolution, we're looking at changes in the entire group of organisms over time. So thinking of like, just changes in that group, whereas development, we're talking about the growth of the organism. So from the ball of cells that you are in the beginning of your life to when you finally reach adulthood, how is that development possible? So that is the difference between evolution and development. We're looking mostly at changes in adaptations over time versus growth. I think there's a total of 4 questions. What did chickens evolve from? This was a fun question. If you did the trees from yesterday, you'll know that birds in general are related to dinosaurs. So dinosaurs were the first, I'm gonna call them the first birds because really that's what I like to think of them as. Giant birds. A lot of species of dinosaurs did have feathers too. They also had teeth, so that was kind of scary. But chickens evolved from that same line of dinosaurs, which brought us our birds today. So birds are more related to dinosaurs than like lizards. Lizards are not as closely related to dinosaurs as birds are. That's just fun facts. All right, and then this last question, which is going to transition us into what I'm going to show you on the board, is the cladograms. So those trees that you built yesterday, those are cladograms. They just called them trees in that simulation for some reason. And cladograms are actually really useful for showing relationships between organisms and showing the characteristics that distinguish organisms. This question was specific about like if we wanted to go into higher levels of science, like would you still use them? If you were in the same field of biology, yes, you would still continue to use cladograms. I had to build one in my ecology class. We looked at them in my evolution class, but that was because I was in evolution and it made sense. And then I did a big long one at the end of my evolution class where we looked at DNA strands, and then I had to build it from the DNA strands, which was fascinating and super specific, and I feel like I learned so much. But yes, they are taught in college if you are in the biology field. Obviously, they don't apply to like chemistry or to physics, but if you're in the route of bio, they'll be there. So I wanted to just discuss these cladograms. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Hold on. And what they looked like. So I'm gonna bring out my whiteboard. Bring out a whiteboard on here. Okay, so a cladogram. I just want to make sure 100% that you guys know what you're looking at when you're looking at a cladogram, and that you know what goes where. So first of all, cladograms usually always are shaped like a V, and you can draw, and I would actually suggest you draw this in your notes too as you go through it. We're just going to make a super, super tiny one. So this is a cladogram. It's only going to have 3 organisms on it. So each of these branches is an organism. So our organisms are going to be, now I have to think of organisms. Chimp. Ooh. Salamander. And eel. I almost spelled eel wrong. Wow. Okay, so eel is going to go here. Salamander, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to write using the touchpad on your computer. It's very hard. All right, so chimp. Okay, so with a cladogram, what this does is we are going to have traits along the cladogram that will distinguish between one species and another. So each of these little lines represents a trait and where those traits go. The way that it works is everything above that trait on that line. So I want you to think of this line as like a timeline. Anything above that trait, that organism will have. So if we go back, erase all this. So this trait down here, all 3 of those organisms should share that trait because all 3 of them are above that line. So this one right here. This second trait should only be for salamanders and chimps because the eels are not above it, they're below it. This third one, that one all the way at the top right here, that one should be for just the chimp. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put in characteristics here that we think would be for all of them. So what is a characteristic that all 3 of these have in common? Anything. It could be literally anything. So I heard a spine. Did someone say eyes? You said eyes? Okay, so we're gonna put 2. So they all have eyes, they all have a spine. So eyes. And a spine. All right, so for that second one, we're thinking of a characteristic that only salamanders and chimps would have. So what's something that only salamanders and chimps would have, but eels would not? Yeah, how many? Yeah, 4 legs. Because even though the chimps have arms, we can still, or we can call them appendages, if that makes you feel better. But I'm gonna just write 4 legs. 4 legs. All right, now that last characteristic, what is something that only chimps have? What? Fur, hair, yeah. Opposable thumbs, yeah. So we're gonna do fur / hair, because I don't know how to spell opposable. Okay, so fur / hair. On a quiz, I could ask something like, what characteristic separates eels and salamanders? And what would you guys say? 4 legs, right? Because eels and salamanders, that is the characteristic that divides them. I could ask, what characteristics do all of them have in common? And we could say eyes, we can say spine. So just recognizing how we read these cladograms are going to be really important. That is what you guys are going to be working on tomorrow. Is I gave you 5 organisms, and you guys just have to make your own. I'm not looking for right or wrong. Like, there's nothing I'm going to be like, no, that is not exactly the characteristic I'm looking at. I'm just looking at a characteristic that you found that is going to be specific to it. If it's obviously like wrong, like you put fur on an eel, then like I'm going to take off points then. But for the most part, it should be pretty simple to distinguish between the 5 organisms. You can, if you can figure out how to do it on the computer, which you can do by using lines and text boxes, you can do it on the computer and then take a screenshot of that and add it to your assignment, or you can write it on paper and then take a picture of it and upload it that way. I did ask that you included pictures of your organisms, and your pictures don't have to be beautiful. They can literally be like, for my eel, I could draw like this head, and this is gonna look like a little spermy boy, right? And then like they have lines and like mouths. My salamander, this is actually gonna be a little bit better. Like body and like feet, and like a tail, feet. Right, and then a chimp. I didn't make anything too difficult. I don't think I put a chimp on there.